Hey everyone, this is David's Package, and this is a long play of Phantasmagoria, A Puzzle of Flesh, a 1997 PC game by Sierra. It came on a whopping 5 CDs. It has no connection to the first Phantasmagoria, aside from its main character, Adrienne, getting name dropped. It was one of the last attempts at making an adventure game with full motion video. They were pretty expensive to produce and getting less interesting to make as 3D graphics became better. Along with Gabriel Knight 2, The Beast Within, I think this is the best game of this genre. It was directed by Andy Hoyos, who was the art director on Phantasmagoria 1. He also designed the creature for this game. But while the first one was written by Roberta Williams, this one was written by Lorelei Shannon. It also had a much larger production crew than the first game, no doubt a necessity due to the much larger cast and use of real locations instead of green screen ones. I first LP'd this game back in 2008. Back then, YouTube had terrible quality as a video host, so I uploaded it to Vio and Vidler, two sites that I think are both long gone now. I still had the video files, but if I was going to re-upload the LP, I wanted to make it the best quality it could be. An issue I was unable to solve was getting the cursor to show up in recordings. It's something to do with a different version of Windows and a different laptop than last time, and me using the excellent installation patch by Squirt the Cat. No cursor, but I do have the best possible image quality this way. What I did instead was insert a graphic of the game's cursor in spots where I felt it wasn't clear enough where I was clicking. As nicely produced as this game is, the volume is all over the place, and sometimes voices are just drowned out by the background noise or music. Plus, some voices are so distorted it's hard to make out what they say. So I thought I'd add something to the game it sorely needed: subtitles for all the dialogue. It was an incredible slog and something that probably only a few people will care about. But whatever, I did it. In my original LP, I had my own text comments sporadically inserted. My plan was to put those comments back in using YouTube's annotations so that the viewer could turn them on and off if they wanted. But I failed to consider that YouTube is always trying to make its features actively worse for its users and would throw those out. So, no annotations then, it's just a regular long play instead of a let's play. So why do Phantasmagoria 2 and not the first one? Well, I did play the first one before the sequel, and it's a classic, but it just didn't stick in my mind like the second game. The writing and acting are better, the fact that it's not all green screened gives it all a much more grounded and realistic feel, there's more characters, a way better plot. I will say that probably the actual gameplay is better in the first game. Normal adventure games are all about solving problems and overcoming obstacles, but FMV games tend to just throw in event flags, where the game will absolutely not progress until you talk to a certain character or look at a certain item. And in my memory, Phantasmagoria 1 does that a lot less than 2 does. Even though there's not many noteworthy titles, I have a real fondness for the FMV game genre, and kind of wish someone would pick it up again now. Sure, they're basically a relic. Back then, watching actual video on a PC was pretty novel. It didn't even really matter that the gameplay was often severely limited or just plain terrible, or that the actual quality of the video was grainy, pixelated, heavily reduced in colors, forced into small formats, and even then had to be spread out over like 5 to 7 CDs that you constantly had to swap out for each other. What was I talking about? Oh yeah, how much I love FMV games. FMV games often get mocked for bad writing and acting. The actors are often either stage actors who are used to more dramatic performances than camera actors, or just the designers and their friends and family. But the mockery is also partially to blame on the design and editing. Having characters end their dialogue in awkward silences as they return to their original place and sometimes even stands to match the shot. And the writing is often edgy in a dumb way, amateuristic, and always trying to imitate Hollywood, as some game creators always have. Interactive movies might always be kind of a gimmicky dead end. Movies are about pacing, tight editing, carefully planned shots. Give the player control of the rhythm and suddenly the tempo feels off. The beat that runs through a scene of dialogue keeps getting broken up by pauses. The player gets to procrastinate the character's logical goals and fart around just because they can. And all of that conspires to make the player unconsciously feel this movie they're watching is a bad movie, and therefore a bad game. Still, it's not hopeless. It's simply a matter of refining the genre and working with its limitations. 2 years ago, the game Until Dawn, I felt, was as close to a perfect interactive movie as anyone's ever gotten. Nowadays, there's a handful of newer FMV games out, though they tend to be very, very low-budget indie projects, which isn't necessarily bad, but with higher video quality easily available, much less restrictions on the game's file size, much easier access to professional video effects. I would love to see someone do the kind of high-definition FMV game that's all at once an homage to the old FMV games, while also fixing that genre's worst mistakes, such as the fidgeting moments in between dialogue. Phantasmagoria may have been painfully 90s at times, and its set dressing may not have always been that great, but a lot of it was far more professional and on point than other games like it. Some things have aged better than others. The portrayal of a mental hospital and its patients as a horrible bedlam filled with gibbering nuts is pretty standard for the time, but is pretty stigmatizing towards mental patients now. Though Sierra and the game's writer did put out a statement at the time, clarifying that they did not intend to stigmatize mental patients in any way, and that the mental hospital used in the game was supposed to be a very badly run hellhole of a place. Of course, that doesn't really excuse some of the mental patients being such ridiculous caricatures. On the other hand, the game's portrayals of homosexuality and bisexuality are surprisingly positive and sensitive, especially for a video game. The element of S&M and the fetish club is kinda quaint and goofy. You could probably tell an even darker horror story when you involve the way crazier pain play and dom-sub relationships of that culture and steer them off the road, but I suppose that would add another heavy story element to a story that already has way too many of them. These games often get mocked for lackluster acting, but I think Phantasmagoria 2's actors are pretty strong. You have to keep in mind that these games probably get filmed in a very segmented way, whereas for actors it's more helpful to their performance to play a longer scene that lets them stay in the emotion of their character. I feel that Paul Morgan-Stedler, who plays Curtis Craig, does a very good job handling all the emotional stuff his character goes through. Anyway, enjoy the long play. It covers as much of the footage in the game as I was able to include in one play session. Anything I was unable to include will be put into an extra video. Well, hope you enjoyed the videos, and don't forget, Phantasmagoria 2 can still be bought from Good Old Games or on Steam. I have to go.